What's going on, everybody? This is David Williams, also known as Diamond Dave. This is going out to the Stock Market Sharks group. And so we want to show you is like how you can set yourself up to have the highest paying part-time job in the world. And it's really the foundation of this particular setup is going to just be what we talked about before, is that reading the news, understanding what's going on in the market, and doing some really basic due diligence. And what I want to do is I want to show you a short play that's getting ready to set up probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a month, because of some really unusual behavior going on around a specific company that we call Rite. Some people may know about it. It's almost like a drugstore type company that you see in a lot of different neighborhoods. So it's similar to CVS or similar to Walgreens, but it's a regional company. So it may be available in your area, but may not be available in somebody else's area. There were a few Rite when I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, but now that I'm currently living in Orlando, I don't see hardly any Rite, but I may be missing them because I'm just surrounded by so many CVS's and Walgreens. So Rite put out their earnings report, I want to say earlier this month. And if we look at that, so let's go ahead and just look at the chart. We see that once they put earnings out, it blew up. So we'll look at, this is earnings. So Rite was around $7. They put earnings out and it jumped up. And one of the reasons why it jumped up is because so many people had shorted Rite that when it started to go up on earnings, they had to cover shorts, which essentially now continue to accelerate the rise of the stock. It's what we call a short squeeze. So I don't want to get into what a short squeeze is, but there was multiple things that happened to make Rite become this high. So Rite on 12/18 was $8.32, and right now on 12/27 is $20.30. So there's a kind of like meteoric or volcano type effect and the share volume or the share value of Rite. Now the question we want to ask ourselves is that, can we look at this and see opportunities for us to make money off this situation? And I believe we can. So what I want you to do is I want you to look at the yearly of Rite. So Rite around top of the year was around 19, started to drop off. Why did it drop off? Because a lot of these companies in this particular sector are not really doing that well. And there's other things going on that you can now research and understand, because there was earnings reports in between this time. And we saw that Rite continued to go down. They really performed well on earnings per share this last earnings. And you can go look at earnings, go to the Rite, go to the investors page and look at it. Listen to the earnings call. Read their particular 10Q. Read their investors information and try to understand what happened this quarter to where their earnings per share was so high, because it really exceeded expectations by a lot. So that caused the rise in the stock, because most people believed that Rite probably was going to underperform, so they were shorting it. Go to 2 years, see the same thing. It's still declining. Go to 5 years, we see at one time Rite crazy was 173, which is amazing to me. 5 years ago, Rite was 173.20. But we see since 5 years, what has it been doing? It's just been declining. Been declining. So Rite had a really short term turnaround. So over the past month, it's jumped up. What I also do is I'm going to look at the summary. This really stands out. Look at volume and average volume. See the discrepancy between those two numbers. Rite right now is doing a lot of volume. However, the average volume is really low. Right? So their volume is abnormal. Okay? 52-week range. Look at that. Between 504 and 23. And so we're just reflecting the last few days. But look at that range. I mean, that's a major range in between the two over the course of a year. Right? We can also look at some other statistics. Because what I'm going to look at the short ratio. So short ratio still is 9.98. Out of their shares outstanding, 14.24 are shorted. So people are still shorting this stock at I wouldn't say at a high rate, but at a decent rate. And their float is 51.74 million. In my opinion, this is a good short opportunity. Now, why do I think it's a good short opportunity? One, because this increase in price is abnormal. It's really abnormal, and I think it has to do with the fact that they exceeded their earnings. There were a lot of people that had shorted this particular stock. So as demand for the stock started to rise and started to raise the share value, people had to cover those particular shares they had shorted. which in turn means they had to buy shares, which now started to increase demand more, which started to put fuel on this particular stock. Okay. However, if the only reason the stock goes up is because of what we call a short squeeze, that's not sustainable. So therefore, because that's not sustainable, if the rise in the value of the stock or the rise in the price is not sustainable, then what do we know is going to happen? It's going to eventually go back down. Because once the short squeeze is over, it's going to eventually level off and then come back down to what its actual price really is. So Rite, based on how it's performing as a company, based on the industry, based on what's going on in the market, might be a $10 to $12 stock. But right now it's at 20, 30. That's one reason why I believe it's a good short opportunity. Another reason why I believe it's a good short opportunity because I'm looking at the amount of volume. And this volume number is so skewed, it's so abnormal that it's not sustainable. Okay? It's not sustainable. So once the volume starts to leave Rite, and the volume is because you got a lot of people in the market trading this particular stock. All right? Once all the buyers leave, the sellers are going to follow them. Why? Because if there's nobody buying anymore, then there's no way you can sell it. So then what are people going to have to do to get it sold? They're going to have to drop the price. Okay? So those are two reasons. And also you can look at the statistics. We understand that a lot of people are still shorting it. The short ratio is 9.98. They got to look at their float and look at how many shares are being shorted. 51.74 million float. Look at their share. Short is 14.24. So percentage of the float, a short percentage of float is 26.68. So we understand that people are still looking at this as a really attractive short opportunity. So what I would do now is, and you can do this inside your brokerage account, but I'm doing this for Yahoo just because I'm kind of being lazy right now, is I'm looking at what is some of the open interest on shorts. And if you're looking at on the short side or put side, some of the open interest for January 3rd, we see decent interest here, but where I really see it at is on this particular date right here, which is the 10th. I'm sorry, I didn't mean the 10th. I meant the 17th. This is weird right here. This is really weird. I don't even know why somebody would do this, but it is what it is. 150. I just think that might be like a computer error. But I'm looking at a lot of open interest on shorts, on the put side, I'm sorry, on the January 17th contracts. So I'm probably looking to do something around January 17th on the put side. Because like I said, is that this particular rise happened because a lot of things happen at the same time. The thing is that those things are not going to continue to happen at the same time over the next 90 days. And what will happen is that Rite will start to go down. And I've seen this happen with a pet company. There was a pet company called, I think, PetMed. There was a pet company called PetMed. They put out a really, really good earnings. Their earnings was crazy, and their share value really jumped up. And it's the same thing. You start to see really, really abnormal volume compared to the historical volume. And what I knew was that once that volume leaves this particular company, that the share price is going to start to fall. And I was correct. About, I want to say 3 to 4 weeks later, all that volume started to leave that particular market. And like I said, is that once nobody's buying anymore, the people that are selling are going to have to drop their price to try to entice people not to buy. And then what happened is that share price started to fall. So this seems to me to be a similar setup. And so like I said, is that once you start to understand setups, you start to understand some of the characteristics of why things are taking place in the market. Once you start to see it multiple times, you kind of know how it's going to go. And this price for Rite Aid is not sustainable. There's a reason why over the past 2 years, this particular price has been declining. Okay? And unless you believe that their management company, and you can listen to the investors call this weekend or Monday and try to get an understanding of what their management is saying about why they were able to perform that well. Unless you believe that the reason why they were able to exceed earnings expectations this quarter, if you believe that's sustainable, if you believe in their path for the future, then I would tell you to buy Rite Aid and to get on the call side. However, I don't believe that what they've done is sustainable. I believe there was a lot of really unique situations that caused this particular stock to go this high. And so to me, this is a really good setup for a put. So I wanted to show you this because I wanted to show you how, situations create good put opportunities. And I'm really short on like the retail space, because they're under a lot of pressure, because a lot of these particular companies have not really figured out the online game, or the online game is going to really impact their business and they don't have a solution to it. So it's a lot of really good short opportunities. And the reason why I like Rite at 2030 is because I don't like to short anything under $10. So there's a lot of room now between $20 and $10 for me to take some of the meat off the bone. So I wanted to put this in the group, so I wanted to kind of show you how I'm looking at situations. If you got any questions, let me know. Put it in the group. We can talk about it. This is David W. Williams, and I'll talk to you later.